All right, welcome back to the Square State Sandlot podcast. This is our second episode, and joining us today back from his Pittsburgh vacation, decked out in his Pittsburgh stuff for the Hall of Fame game, is Kyle.
Absolutely.
So Kyle, obviously we have some listeners that have followed us over from the Across the Pond with Bill and John podcast, where you were a regular, I don't know, guest, co-host, I don't know. So
the guest that would never leave.
for
Yeah.
the new listeners, I'm going to have you go ahead and give yourself a nice little introduction so they have a better idea of who you are and what you like, and we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good. I guess I'll make it pretty short and sweet, but like John and Bill touched on it in the first one. Obviously, we're all from Wyoming. That's kind of what ties us together as far as this podcast. But as far as sports and things, I mean, that's basically what we focused on. But I grew up a diehard Miami Dolphins fan. And then I'm a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan. And then basically, long story short, a couple years ago, my wife got me tickets to go see the Penguins for the first time, or at least the first time in Pittsburgh. And I mean, basically, I just absolutely fell in love with that city. It is the greatest place on earth. And that led to me basically, I was on a hiatus from the NFL, and it kind of just got me right back into football. So I started following the Steelers. My wife's family has always been Steelers fans. Her entire family is. So it was an easy transition. But so it's kind of fun being back into I was that guy that, draft night for the NFL, I had my notepad and I was tracking picks. I mean, I've always been that guy. So it's kind of fun getting back into it. And then Bill got me to go down the rabbit hole that is baseball. And man, I don't know. My wife laughs at me, but I am into it. But just out of nowhere, I absolutely love watching baseball. So basically anything Pittsburgh, and then the glue that probably holds this group together is obviously Wyoming Cowboys. I mean, we got to rep UW, so I guess that's the gist of my sports fandom. And other than that, I'm happily married to my best friend, and I'm the proud parent of a couple Sphinx cats, and that's me in a nutshell.
I think that touched on the majority of the things. We'll talk about some, I don't know, I don't want to say pop culture, but whatever. We'll talk on some subjects like that every once in a while. We'll also talk about like books and video games we're excited about, but for the most part, we talk
Absolutely.
sports. So with that in mind, let's get into the sports stuff. And leading off, this is news that just came out probably 5 or 6 hours ago. It's pretty tough news for A's fans. Ray Fosse, our former catcher and longtime broadcaster, announced that over the last 16 years he's privately been fighting cancer, and it's flared back up, and he's stepping away from the broadcast booth in the meantime to focus on fighting cancer again. Like I said, it's definitely tough news for A's fans, especially those that have grown accustomed to listening to him every night on the TV broadcast. Ray's just a fantastic ball of energy, and I really hope he recovers just fine and we get him back in the booth before too long. The pair of him and Glenn Kuiper, and then just in the last couple of seasons they added Dallas Braden to the broadcast. So that group is, I mean, that's what carries me through my summer. So definitely saddened by this news, but I know he'll make it through strong and get back in the booth for us to hopefully enjoy him next season. Kind of knew something was up because he hasn't been on the last probably 2 weeks of broadcasts, and no real news accompanied it, so I wasn't sure what was going on. But they had Dontrell Willis. He's from Oakland. He's been on a lot of the pre-game live and all that stuff. And then they also had Shooty Babbitt. Same thing. He's been on the pre and post-game live stuff for NBCSN California. So, like I said, I don't really have anything else to add other than just hope he recovers and hope to see him back in the booth before too long. So, best wishes to him. I know you've probably heard him a couple times watching the A's games, so
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, you hate to see it happen to anybody, but it's just, I mean, he's literally the voice of the A's, basically. So that's going to hit a whole fandom pretty hard. Um, I just hope, like you said, hopefully they can get it battled back, and he can make a return, or at the very least have a quality of life. So
yeah.
pretty sad.
Yeah. We won't add too much more to that. I think we've said everything we need to. So, th- all good positive thoughts out to Ray and his family,
Absolutely.
and we'll move on to the week that was, and that was the MLB trade deadline. Um, in fact, you came on to baseball just in time to see probably the craziest trade deadline I've seen in baseball in my 30 years or so watching. You came on for the most exciting one, so it was definitely interesting. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and then we'll kind of go over some of the moves as we go through.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're a little bit late on this, obviously. I apologize for the delay. My own selfish trip kind of got in the way.
We'll forgive you. We know this is all about sports.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess as far as my initial react, it was obviously an exciting trade deadline. Um, I mean, I had a unique perspective for the Buccos just because I knew that fire sale was coming. Um, and I mean, we not only did what I expected us to do, some of the moves Sherrington pulled off. I mean, I'll get to them in a minute, but all in all, I mean, he killed it. But it made it for an exciting deadline, and it all happened relatively late. But man, some of the other moves in the league, I was not, especially. I mean, I'll use the Cubs as an example. I mean, they were talking about a late run earlier in the season, and I've touched on that back when we were the other podcast still, but it's a different experience for me seeing how much that can change, how fluid it is over a season. That we're a contender in the first couple months, the wheels fell off, and now we're selling every. I mean, you don't see that in that same sense, and not in the same volume, in NFL, basketball, hockey. You just don't see that. It's not. I don't know how to put it. It's not part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was weird. It was a little different. Some of these players it's just, the logic of wanting to move these players, at least on the surface, doesn't seem right. I get it. I get that that's kind of how this is built. You put a team together. If they do well, we move forward. If they don't, we sell it off and we try another setup. But it's definitely unique, I would say, and it made for, like I said before, with the NFL draft, I'm that guy with my own notes and notebook. I've always really enjoyed diving into the off the field side of sports. So I don't know. It was fun following it. I had a really good time. It was, there was no lack of excitement, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you said it very accurately. It all came late. There was a couple moves, like the Frazier move was pretty early, and you'll
Right.
get into that a little bit later. But I was basically saying A's aren't going to do anything. Like, it's quite apparent they're not going to do anything. And then right before the deadline, they made three moves right before the deadline. They made one earlier in the week. So I was getting pretty upset with the front office, and looks like they actually pulled through, and we'll get into that more. But I think the biggest news was Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals going to the Dodgers, and they also added Danny Duffy, and then just a free agent move that they made. I think it was yesterday. They signed Cole Hamels as well. So I'll touch on this topic a little bit later, but it seems to me like with them adding three starting pitchers, they're not counting on Trevor Bauer coming back this season, and his legal troubles continue. In fact, MLB just agreed to extend his leave another week, week and a half, something like that, till August 13th. I don't want to get too much into that topic because it's not really about trade deadline. Kind of is, but also we don't know
Yeah,
all the facts or anything like that, so I don't want to condemn him or
right.
the victim, whatever.
Everything you see is a lot of speculation.
So
Um,
I don't
yeah,
know if we'll see him again this year. So I think that's probably their motivation in adding the three pitchers in the trade deadline, and then obviously afterwards with Cole Hamels. So that's how that ties in. But moving away from that, Trey Turner, he's going to be kind of a, I don't know. He's everyday shortstop in um, Washington. Now he's on the Dodgers, where they have Seager that has been playing
right.
shortstop. So it's tough to see where he'll actually end up. Might be another one of those super utility guys, or
I was
maybe.
gonna say that's all I could think of when I heard it was that he'd have to be some form of a utility player or
Well, and Seager's
I don't know.
kind of done that in the past too, so it might be split between both of them. One of them plays second base, whatever, just however they can get him in the lineup. So, um, in terms of what they gave up, you know, the Dodgers look at it like they're giving up to get essentially a World Series ready roster.
Well, they're win
Washington,
now. I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
and Washington's looking at it like they got years of control over three pretty decent prospects. They're not, the best prospects in the league, which you would not expect a World Series contender to have a great farm system typically. So, um, yeah, they all seem to have pretty good upside. I think there was probably one out of that trade package that was top 10 prospect in the Dodgers organization. So, not a great return, but when you're looking at Trey Turner possibly leaving next season, and I think Scherzer, this is the last year of his contract, so if they weren't going to re-sign him, you may as well get something back for him, and that's what they did. So, um, one last thing I did want to mention, um, right now Trevor Bauer is getting paid, even though he's on the commissioner's exempt list or whatever they call it in baseball. I can't remember exactly. So the Dodgers total payroll, which I shared this on Twitter yesterday, is at 267 million, something like that for their payroll. And just for comparison's sake, the A's are at 88 million. So the Dodgers literally have three times the payroll than the A's, and not that I don't know. I don't want to dig too deep into that because it's definitely a rabbit hole to jump into. But
for sure.
A's need to spend. That's the moral of the story. So I'll leave it at that. But let's have you give your
Uh,
thoughts on this next move here.
um,
Well, set of
I,
moves, I should say.
I guess one thing to say on the spending before we move on, it is another one of those things that is a new experience for me because obviously following hockey, football, even NBA when I was younger, it's not. It's just kind of a unique approach, I guess. You just don't see that much disparity between the top and bottom in the other leagues. The only thing I will say is I understand why people at the bottom get frustrated, but at the end of the day, the others could spend more money too.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. So I probably don't know enough to weigh in too heavy on that, but I don't know, maybe somewhere in the middle.
Well,
It
let's just say
just
this. Despite, COVID last year, all these sports leagues, their valuations of the ownership groups and all that, they just keep going up. So to say the A's can't spend money, and I know Fisher was going through some stuff with Gap and Old Navy. Those are his holding companies. Um, Not to say, just because he's worth 4 billion, he has 4 billion in the bank he can spend, but he treats the A's like just a piggy bank. He doesn't care what kind of product they put on the field. He just wants his paycheck. And that's one way to run, like, obviously that's how you want to run a business, but if you
Yeah.
want your business to succeed in pro sports, you need to have some level of success, some level of excitement to get the fans involved in buying your product. So I feel like I said, I don't want to dig too deep into this, but I feel like he probably should just, if that's what he wants to do, is just make money off the team. He bought it for 110 million, I think, a few years ago, and it's worth probably at least $1 billion now. So there's your
Oh yeah.
profit. Get the hell out of Oakland. Like, I'll leave it at that.
No, I can absolutely relate. I mean, we also have an owner that he's more about obviously being successful business wise. The outcome of the season is less of his concern. Obviously, I've talked about Ben Sherrington and how high on him I am, and he's doing amazing things. But hopefully that can continue. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not willing to spend money, you're not going to keep up with these teams. I mean, at some point you got to spend.
Well, and that's
So I mean,
Yankees. We'll jump into the Yankees here in just a second, but everyone just condemned the Yankees for, the last 20, 30 years because they were consistently spending more money than anyone else. And had they
and it was
not,
working.
yeah, well, and had they not owned Yes Network, they wouldn't have been making money. They'd have been losing their asses on how much money they were putting into their roster. So, but with TV and these contracts MLB's getting, like, that props up these owners. They're not going to lose money even if they spend. The Dodgers are not losing money even though they're spending
No.
266 million a year on their payroll. And some of that may come off if Bauer is found to have done what he's been accused of. They're not going to end up having to pay that money. It's a guaranteed contract, but if he's not able to take the field because he's in jail or whatever, they can obviously recoup some of that money or all of that money. So
Right.
some of it may come off the books, but right now he's getting paid while they're doing this investigation. So that's their payroll status. They keep adding, so I don't know how they keep doing it, but here we are. So speaking of the Yankees, they made a couple moves to bolster their lineup. They were kind of
Yeah.
middling in third place in their divisions. They were still in the race, especially for that second wild card spot. But they added Gallo from the Rangers, Rizzo from the Cubs,
Yeah.
and Heaney. I'm blanking on where he is from as of this moment, but I'll look it up while you're giving your thoughts on what they did at the deadline.
Well, like I said, I mean, I'll touch on Rizzo first, I guess. Obviously, seeing those guys a lot throughout the season, I've watched them a lot this year. Like I said, them going from a contender to, they're basically hitting rebuild, much like my Pirates are. They're looking to build for the future kind of thing now. So obviously they moved a handful of guys, but at one point in time, Rizzo and Javier were off the table. They were not even. Bryant was always going to be shopped the way they were talking, and they were off the table. So, I mean, I guess as it got closer to the deadline, obviously it was less of a surprise that those guys got moved.
Yeah.
I thought maybe two of the three might. I definitely didn't think all three were going to go.
Well, and they traded Schwarber, or not Schwarber, Kimbrel too.
Kimbrel.
So four of their big core.
And Gallo was the same way. I really thought he was going to re-sign. Yeah, I didn't think they'd let him walk out the door, and I thought they would come to some kind of I thought they'd figure something out.
Well, and they still might. This is last year, so if he doesn't like it,
that's true.
But I don't know. If I was hitting in that little league park as a left-handed hitter, you got to be kidding me. I'd be making bank there.
He's gonna have a heyday. His numbers, his home runs are gonna go up.
Did you see that home run he hit today?
I didn't.
Okay.
I saw the one Rizzo hit in that first game.
It's a frickin' pop-up in any other park. and
Uh,
made it out in Yankee Stadium. That was his first home run there, so real nice. You get
yeah,
those cheapies on fly balls, you're gonna be doing all right when you actually crush them.
well, I guess the one thing I'll say on that is I actually really like Gallo and Rizzo. I think they're pretty fun players to watch. I feel like they're pretty good fellows. I mean, it's easy to hate the Yankees, so it's kind of a bummer that they went to the Yankees. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm happy for both of them. I feel like both of them deserve, the money they're going to get. So
Yeah. Well, and
I don't know.
Rizzo, he's played very well in his game so far there. And Heaney, I did look it up. He's from I should have known this because he's from our division, but Angels, which
Oh,
they've kind of punted on this season, and talk about it a little bit later. But Rendon had season-ending surgery, so obviously Trout's been out basically the whole year.
yeah.
So kind of a lost season for the Angels, but it seems to happen every year. I don't know what it is about them, but they can never hold on to pitching, which Heaney was one of their better starters, and they got rid of
Well,
him. So
I thought they were going to be one of these teams that made moves for pitchers.
yeah,
I really thought that they would try to make a push, but
they're too far out now, especially with Seattle playing the way that they are, and then A's made some great additions at the deadline, looked to get better. So I think they saw the writing on the wall and decided to get what they could out of any players that were not under control in the future. So
absolutely. I mean, all in all, it's good. They're good pickups for the Yankees. I mean, they're solid moves. I would have liked to have seen at least Gallo and Rizzo in a different uni, but
yeah.
I mean, it's how it works. What can you do?
Well, there was talks that instead of these guys, they were going to go after Story. Obviously,
Right.
Story's not having a great year. Concerns about his throwing from short, so they're talking about moving him to outfield. The the Rockies hanging on to him was a shock to me, but I guess really shouldn't be shocked at anything the Rockies do after they gave up Arenado and paid
Yeah.
part of his contract to get rid of him for 3 subpar prospects. Obviously, that GM's gone and a new guy's taken over, but I don't think he really has full control because he's only an interim. So I think ownership was probably like, let's keep Story so we can keep butts in the seat. But that's just my opinion.
I don't think you're far off. I mean, you're not going to find fans that are more disgusted than after the last trade.
Yeah,
So, um, to for them to lose Story on top of it, I mean, it would have been twisting the knife basically. So, I agree with you. I don't understand them keeping him as far as a, you know, on the field production perspective. I mean, they're obviously not winning a pennant anytime soon. Um, but I agree that it's probably to at least keep people showing up to Coors Field without pitchforks and fire. So yeah, I was surprised. I thought he was going to be one of the early movers. Honestly, I
yeah.
thought Story was going to
Well,
be one of them that started off this trade deadline and
as soon
just
as
didn't happen.
they said the A's were interested in him that early, I knew he wasn't going to Oakland because the A's front office is super tight-lipped. You don't usually hear about a move until it's literally happening, and that was the way with the Marte trade.
Right.
It was like, oh, the A's are interested in Marte, and then 10 minutes later, A's have traded for Marte. So we'll
Right.
talk about that in a minute. But interdivision move for the AL East. Red Sox got Schwarber. Um, Blue Jays got Jose Barrios from the Twins. Um, like that move for the Blue Jays specifically. He was also rumored to be going to the Padres, which Padres were also kicking the tires on Scherzer and Trey Turner, but ultimately got beat
Yeah.
out by LA on the prospects and what they were
I'm
willing to give up.
really I'm really bummed about the Scherzer
Yeah,
situation.
it's really weird because
Mostly,
Ken Rosenthal is like locked in, and he said
yeah.
it was done to the Padres, and then there was some pushback on that, and obviously he ended up going to LA. So definitely surprised, but I think the Padres were very smart in what they did. Um, Not giving up. They have a good farm system despite being, a contender and a higher payroll this season specifically, but not giving up prospects for a rental. Obviously, Scherzer helps the Dodgers, especially in a short series, but I feel like they still are confident in their matchup against uh, the Dodgers, even with Scherzer. So I think they were smart to stand put. Then we talked about the White Sox. Well, we talked about the Cubs trading Kimbrel. He went to the White
Yeah,
Sox.
this is one of my favorite pickups, I think, as far as contenders.
Not mine.
Kimbrel, well, fair enough. But Kimbrel is, I mean, he's impressive. He's really hard to hit off of. Um, I mean, some of it's his delivery. He's got a wonky
Oh God, that
delivery,
thing
and
is hideous. He looks like a damn
it's
bird.
obnoxious. I know it's obnoxious when you're playing him because I mean, I think people have a really hard time dealing with his release, but um, I don't know. He's really good. I think this is one of those pickups that's going to have a big impact come playoff time.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I don't like it is obviously who's at the helm for the White Sox.
Right.
Up until last year, I was, obviously not a White Sox fan, but they were one of those teams that I was like, all right, if the A's can't do it, then that would be a team I could get behind. Not anymore. Not a fan of La Russa.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. He has been. I'll give him his props. He's done a great job this season. Didn't think he would be able to band this group together, and maybe it's in spite of him rather than for him. But they definitely have
Yeah.
banded together and put together a pretty impressive season. Obviously, Kimbrel's going to help them down the stretch. So another Cubs move. The Mets got Baez from the Cubs in their sell-off. He reunites with Francisco Lindor. Very deadly combo up the middle. If they can re-sign Baez, which I feel like they would have to I don't know. He's been rumored to go back to the Cubs after this season, so we'll see what happens with that. But if they can keep that group together, that's a pretty good combo for your middle infield.
Yeah, this is that third part of those three players that I did not think had a shot of being moved. I was really surprised that they pulled the trigger.
Yeah, well, it's crazy what a 10-game stretch does for one season. Like they went from
Absolutely
contenders to all right, we'll scrap the season. Obviously they lost 10 games in a row. That doesn't help, but and Brewers are basically running away with that division, so it makes sense to get rid of some assets and get some prospects and not spend a ton on payroll. But in our division, Houston got 3 good relievers. Basically, they have 3 closers that are good at the back of their bullpen, and that's a pretty good combo to have, especially going into playoff time. They haven't been playing the best baseball, but they're still got a stranglehold on the division because A's haven't been playing very good either. So, interested to see. Like July was brutal. Honestly, I think we went pretty much under 500. I can't remember the final numbers. I think we were like 10 and 13 or something like that. And after having such a good June and basically taking a grasp on the lead, Houston overcame that lead and really took a nice head start on us. So we'll see what happens. The Giants traded for Watson and Bryant from the Cubs. That's the one that we probably saw coming. Not necessarily destination, but the player leaving the Cubs. And I think he's from that area because he had, in his first game, they were saying welcome home and all that. So I'm guessing that could be a long-term deal.
Could have tied into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good for him. He looks like he's happy there. He said he felt at home. Obviously, if that is his home, then that could be why. But
that helps.
Lastly, at least for me, and then we'll have you talk about the Pirates. A's got Starling Marte for Jesus Luzardo.
I love that pickup.
Love the pickup for the player. Not necessarily sure I love the compensation we gave up. Jesus Luzardo, like I said, he was one of our top prospects for the last 2 or 3 seasons. He's been pretty inconsistent with his performance and obviously his availability. He's been hurt quite a bit. Um, I don't know if they'd just given up on him ever becoming what they thought he could be, or if it was just one of those things where the team needed a change of scenery. There were some rumors that in the clubhouse, some people weren't too thrilled with him because he had punched a table playing a video game and broke his pinky on his throwing hand, and that got him moved to the minors after he came back because James Caprillion has basically just taken a stranglehold on that fifth starting spot. So, um, like you said, could have just been a change of scenery thing to get him out of the clubhouse and maybe help him mature a little bit. I think he's going to be great for the Marlins. And honestly, if we could re-sign Marte, that would be a rock solid trade for us. He
Yeah,
did
he's
turn
playing
down
well.
he did turn down 3-year, $30 million offer from the Marlins. So I don't know what he's looking for, but if we keep him around for 12 million a year, I'd be all over that. So hopefully that's all it takes. Hopefully we can get him re-signed, because if not, giving up a top end prospect for a 2-month rental, that's not a great strategy. So
Yeah,
um, we also traded for Jan Gomes and Josh Harrison from the Nats for basically 3 lower level prospects. I think the highest rated one in our farm system was 27. So definitely not a lot given up. Jan Gomes has been super clutch. He's already helped contribute to 2 wins out of the 4 games he's played for us. And Josh Harrison, he just got in. The last 2 games, he's played pretty well. And then the last trade we made, well, it was actually the first trade we made, but last one listed, was Chafin from the Cubs. Um, Dude's a hilarious cat. Like, he's got his handlebar mustache. He's just a freaking
oh
character.
yeah,
I think he's going to fit in well. He's pitched very well for us so far in 3 appearances. So happy to have him on board. Like I said, I think he'll fit in just great. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term addition because he was playing very well for the Cubs and is probably due for a healthy contract upgrade. So I don't think he'll be back with us, but great to have him for the stretch run. And let's have you talk about some Pirates.
well, before I get to them, it just made me laugh with a lot of your acquisitions here at the trade deadline. I have seen so many jokes about the A's just basically signing every player from Pittsburgh past between Harrison and Marte. Like, it is just blown up about it. It's just really funny because obviously, Pirates fans latched on to that time frame because, I mean, they had the playoff format been different. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that they would have won the World Series that year, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's a lot to it, but it just made me laugh because every time I saw you guys pop up, it was another ex, Pirate heading to Oakland. So just kind of funny.
Well, we didn't get Rich Rod, but someone did.
No. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, if anyone who's listened, obviously the Pirates were going to be very active at this trade deadline. Previous podcast, I talked about the Frazier trade. That was the one that was expected, obviously. We got 3 prospects for it. I'm not going to dive too much into that because obviously we've talked about it before. But we were super active at the trade deadline. We didn't start off the way I thought we would. This is one of those moves that I think Ben Sherrington is really shining on. Clay Holmes struggled for us. He just couldn't finish batters off. I mean, he'd come into a game and then it would just get out of hand. He obviously early in the season pitched well for us, but it really, really tapered off as the season went on. He's not somebody I would have expected to get anything for. And we ended up getting Diego Castillo and Hoy Park. Castillo, I really don't know a ton about. He's one of their lower level farm players. But Hoy Park, he's actually played the last week or so for us. And he's actually played really well. He's done well at bat, and he's been really good on the infield, and he has played some outfield for him too. So he was one of the Yankees. I mean, they were very high on him as a prospect. Obviously, not high enough to not trade him, but this is one of those trades that I'm still a little confused on. I don't know why the Yankees signed for this trade. I don't get it. I'm glad it happened because I feel like Hoy Park's going to contribute. Hopefully Castillo down the road, but Clay Holmes wasn't going to be a part of our future. I mean, he just wasn't part of the plan. So that was an amazing trade to start us off. And then from there, it kind of took off the way I thought it would. Tyler Anderson ended up going to the Mariners.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah,
Wasn't thrilled about that.
we had a few of our trades that looked like they were lined up going one way, and then just kidding, we sidestepped, and here we are. But they got a good pitcher with Anderson. He's going to fill in nice for him as a rotational starter, and I think he'll do well. But for him, we got a couple of prospects. We got a left-handed pitcher, and then the one that I'm excited about because it's funny because we drafted Henry Davis, catcher, first round like we talked, but our catchers in our farm system it was one of our weakest spots. And through the trade and obviously the draft, we now have pulled in some solid catchers, and Carter Binns is who we got from the Mariners, and he looks to be able to contribute. We'll see how he rises up through the farm league and everything, but another good trade. I feel like we got good prospects. Obviously, that's the direction we're going. We want prospects. We want to be able to, build for the future, so to speak. And then after that, we finally moved Rich Rod. That was one that everywhere I thought he was going Blue Jays. It seemed like that was locked up, and then obviously didn't happen.
I thought they hung on to him because nothing came through before the deadline.
Well, I was going to say it was about 10, 15 minutes after when everything finally, obviously it was things finalizing. You expect some delay and some things, but of course, Twitter and all your social medias were just losing their mind over it. But it finally came through, and we ended up getting two right-handed pitchers from the Braves, Ricky DeVito and Bryce Wilson. And actually, Bryce Wilson's already been called up and pitched for us. We ended up losing the game to the Brewers, like Bill commented. They're obviously running away with our division, but until our relievers kind of gave it away late in the game, he only allowed one run and was solid through five, I believe. And another young prospect that looks like he could contribute down the road. So again, another move. Rich Rod obviously did great for us, but again, lining up time frames, he wasn't probably going to be part of our future plans. Just loaded up more prospects. It was a really good trade. And then the last one, this one is even crazier to me than the Clay Holmes trade. Not because of what we got, just because he's played so terrible that I wouldn't have expected us to get anything for him. Sherrington ended up sending Austin Davis to the Red Sox for an infielder, Michael Chavez. I don't even really know anything about this guy, other than I can't believe somebody was willing to give us a prospect for Austin Davis. I mean, that's really what it came down to. He's been, I hate to be that guy, but I was blown away. It's not a trade that I would have ever saw coming. So you don't win World Series in the offseason, obviously, but between this, obviously, trade deadline and then the draft, Sherrington has done an amazing job. I am in his corner. I'm fully behind him. I hope more of the fandom continues to move that way. I think a lot of people are coming around. But
it's always tough when you're losing. But if you could see you start to see progress in the plan, then you have a little more belief in it. So.
Well, and that's the crazy thing between all these trades is just because I know me and you talked about it a little bit with the Frazier trade. I mean, we were bringing, I believe the one prospect in that trade was the 9th ranked prospect in the Padres system. And he's not even in our top 30. We have an amazing farm system now. I would say top 1 or 2.
Yeah.
We'll see how that ends up, but I'm just very happy with what he's done. Couple other tidbits, I guess, on the Pirates while I got them. Henry Davis, obviously, first round pick, our catcher. It was really cool. He had his first outing in the Florida Complex League with the Pirates and hit a home run in his first outing. Obviously, we talked about how they were very high on his bat. He's a high character kid. I absolutely love this guy. Every time, like I said, every time I hear an interview or hear anyone talk about him, I just love him even more. And he doesn't bat with gloves. He's old school. I love that. But I'm just super happy for him. Had a good start. And speaking of starts, Stephen Brault finally got to pitch for us. He's been out all season. Got hurt during spring training, and he's another one. He's a big personality for our team. He's big in the dugout. But he pitched a really good game. Again, I believe we lost that one also. But as far as his portion of the game, he pitched very, very well. So he's arguably, I don't know. I'm really high on Brubaker, so it's really easy for me to say that he's our best pitcher. But Brault's probably our best starting pitcher as of now. So to have him back is pretty exciting. It's good to see him pitching. So
Yeah.
all in all, Pirates are more of the same. We play the top teams very, very well for some reason, and then we can't string nothing together. But again, it's nothing but prospects for us for the whole way out. Wins and losses are meaningless to us at this point. The rest of this season's about finding answers. Obviously, anybody following the Pirates knows that. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see these young guys and see what they do. So, by the end of the season, Sherrington's going to have a much better feel on what he's doing moving forward, and the 2022 Pirates are going to be probably a very different looking team. I don't think we're going to be in contention yet, but I think you're going to start to see some of these guys rise. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And with that, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk with a few more notes we got here. Be right back with you guys.